yes, welcome to a special edition of SMX Insider. We are your insiders, Jason Wygant and Jason Thomas. This is the Monster Energy AMA Amateur National 43rd Annual Running. We're right here in the center of the motocross universe this week, which is Loretta Lynn's ranch. We just started motos here at 7:30 a.m. on a Tuesday. JT, you lived this life for a long time. Speak of how important this race is and how nervous these riders probably are right now.
Well, simply put, this is the epicenter of the amateur motocross world. Riders have been thinking about this day, this week, for months on end. Training through the winter, they were thinking about this week. So it's get nervous time. First motos on the track. They've all been waiting for it. Now it's time to perform.
We'll have a lot of different angles of Loretta's to cover, from alumnus who are here we'll talk to. JT will analyze the racetrack. A lot of you are probably already familiar with the SMX Next program, which is Supercross Futures and the Scouting Moto Combines. Those riders are already household names when they get there from this event. So we'll also introduce you to some of the up-and-coming talent. And that's what's interesting. When you look at the top level, Chase Sexton, Hayden Deegan, heck, even Jet Lawrence from Australia raced here once. They've all run through this program.
Yeah, this is familiar confines for everybody, whether you're from this country or not. And a lot of times, it's very easy to track the progress from this race into professional championships. There's a very strong parallel about performance on the biggest stage.
Absolutely. So what we did at Washougal was ask today's pro riders to give today's amateur racers some advice for Loretta's.
Enjoy it. It's definitely a stressful week for sure, but you got to enjoy it and take it with a grain of salt. I mean, everyone's got to go through it to get to this level, so enjoy it as best you can, and yeah, always do your best no matter what.
I mean, the biggest thing would just be do your best to not really think about where you're at. Like, just go there, have a good time, especially the first timers. I mean, it's definitely tough for a first timer, I would say, just the pressure that you feel. So yeah, my advice would just be to let go and clear your head and do whatever it is that you need to do to have fun. And I think the racing will come together for them.
I would say, you know, obviously the work's done before it, so go there and enjoy it. You know, you only get to go there so many times, and if you punched a ticket, go there and have some fun, because that's when you're gonna do your best. You know, you go out there and you enjoy your time, and you know you're gonna give it your best effort no matter what. But if you have fun doing it, you're probably gonna have better results.
And you'll see those riders back in action at Unadilla. That'll be the weekend after Loretta Lynn's wraps up. And we're back to the traditional schedule. That's 10 a.m. Race Day Live, presented by motosport.com, an hour qualifying coverage. And then the motos begin 4 straight hours of coverage, plus starting at 1 o'clock Eastern time. Again, that's from Unadilla. You can watch it all on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass. Let's go find JT and talk about some hot topics. Okay, so we are standing near the finish line, where a lot of history has been made. Probably the closest finish I've ever seen, and probably historically in this event, was Jalek Swoll against Jet Lawrence right here. They came across the finish line side by side, separated by a 10,000th of a second. Swoll actually beat Jet Lawrence. You and I were bench racing about that, which is, if you're Swoll, you're just wearing that as a badge of honor forever.
Or he's wondering what happened.
Yeah,
I was able to beat Jet Lawrence. Why not now?
Yes. So the stories are always those that win. That's who always tells the history, right? But as important as that is, for many people, this is the peak of their career. Just being able to say they qualified for the National. And it is a true National. JT, you went through this process. There's area qualifiers at local tracks. The best of those get to go to a regional championship. And then usually the top 7 or 8, but in some classes only top 4, get to go to the National. And that doesn't matter who you are, what factory team you're on, how much money you have. You do not make it through the qualifying at the local tracks, you cannot race here.
Yeah, and it's symbolic we're at the finish line, because this is the culmination of that process, and it's a months-long process. The area qualifier leads up to a much more difficult regional qualifier, and then here we are. This is where it all comes down to, but they've been working on this since the spring just to get to this moment.
And the track is pretty darn challenging. I know you're going to say there's not elevation change and it seems kind of small. It's a lot tougher than you think. We sent JT out there to show you some of the tricks to this track.
One of the most iconic sections here at the Loretta Lynn's racetrack is the 10 Commandments. And just like it sounds, there are 10 jumps of similar size that have been here for going on 40 years now. The key here is to find a rhythm. Now, these ruts don't make that easy, but riders will try to double and triple their way through this section. It's one of the areas of the racetrack that can make up a lot of time if you find that rhythm. And for riders that are looking for areas of the racetrack to make a pass, this is exactly where they can do that each and every lap of this race if they can find that better line.
Okay, we wanted to make sure we shot a portion of this show not showing the racetrack, because just as important to this event is the fact that everyone lives here. It's supposed to be for a week. Some are here a week early, some are here for 3 total weeks. So there's so much traffic, kids driving golf carts, riders getting ready for their motos, and that is all part of the experience just as much as what happens on the racetrack.
It is. This is what you remember. The memories are made, yes, on the racetrack, but also the time spent with people, the time cruising around here as a teenager and just having fun with your friends.
Yeah.
Remember, this is their summer break too, so it's a lot about fun, but it's a lot about competition as well.
And then the funny thing is, when we go to this side, the racetrack is to our left. You're right if you're watching this. This was the pro pit area when we actually did have 2 rounds of the Pro Motocross Championship held at this track in 2020. I think we've all forgotten how dicey it was to not even have a series that year. Had that had not happened, teams would have folded, riders would have lost their jobs. Loretta's bailed everybody out with what turned out to be 2 races. It was supposed to be 1, turned out to be 2.
Yeah, and I remember being a kid here wondering, would they ever bring a national here? Would that ever happen? And I think without that scenario, without the necessity of that, it still wouldn't have happened. But forever now, we're going to be able to look back, and the legends of the sport came back here as professionals.
Yeah.
And there was a whole storyline there. It's like, hey, the return to Loretta's, but now you're a professional, and how that's going to go.
To me, it felt different. They did a good job of, yes, it was Loretta's, but we worked on this side, not that side. They prepped the track differently, and then we had an unbelievable amount of rain and mud, which I guess is typical Loretta's, but it did feel like a pro race, not just we're here for another week for amateurs.
Yeah, and you think about what that season was. Zach Osborne wins that title, the problems that Eli Tomac had here in the mud, and it was a pivotal 2-round swing we had here, and you wonder how championships are won and lost. You look back here, you could almost say a lot of it happened right here.
Yeah, and I think overall when you look at 2020, and same thing with Salt Lake City hosting those Supercross races and letting them get the championship in. Again, had they not held the series, we don't know if there would have been a series in 2021. So for all the riders who have Loretta's in their heart from their teenage memories, as you mentioned, it bailed everybody out that year that the state of Tennessee and this place let them do that and let the sport keep going. Well, this is what they call Greenville, an iconic spot at Loretta Lynn's Ranch for 2 reasons. This is the Kawasaki Team Green program's headquarters area, and probably Team Green has had the most top talent come through this event. Our broadcast colleagues, Ricky Carmichael and James Stewart, they did their winning with Kawasaki Team Green. The second reason this is important is Kawasaki was one of the main and first backers of this event when it started 43 years ago, and they've always had this spot on the starting line. So we're talking to Ryan Holiday, who's the team manager for Team Green these days. I can't believe you've been in charge of this for 16 years now, Ryan. Talk about scouting. It's easy to just say whoever wins the 50cc classes, just sign them to a deal now. But there's a lot more elaborate than you found Drew Adams. It's a lot more elaborate than it just looks to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We go to races all throughout the country, all during the year. There's a big qualifying process to get to Loretta Lynn's here,
Yeah.
area qualifiers, regional qualifiers, a host of other major events that we use to scout the riders. And I look at it as the all-star race. This is where they all come together from all around the country to compete. And a lot of times, it's the only time they'll race against each other all year. So it's really the biggest and best test of all the talent coming together at one time.
Yeah, and specifically for you folks, I've heard it from you, I've heard it from Mitch Payton at Pro Circuit. You kind of like having your own riders race each other sometimes to really see what they have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for us, we want to participate in the most premier classes. That's our goal, and we want to have the premier riders that we believe have the best chance for success down the road. So if that means having 3, 4, 5 riders in the same class going at it along with everybody else, then that's what we want to do because we believe that's going to help them develop for what comes next.
Okay, so Drew, is there a program plan of when he goes pro? Do you know that yet?
So right now, we're going to bring him back for Supercross Futures next year.
Okay.
But as you mentioned, he had a good year doing Futures this year, won a
Yeah.
bunch of the races. He won the Moto Combine so far. He's won the most races at the Canadian Nationals. So he's done a really good job doing that. Obviously, his goal is to win here at Loretta Lynn's. His big goal is to win the Horizon Award. I know that's his big focus for the week.
Okay. Yep.
So that's kind of his last check mark to accomplish that. And then if everything goes well there, our goal is to put him into Ironman at the Pro Motocross.
Okay, Ironman, and then maybe Pro Motocross next year.
We'll see. Got to earn it.
About 5 years ago, a new portion of the Loretta Lynn's program began called the Apprenticeship. This allows people who are not racers that might have skills in other fields to learn on the job. Let's learn more about that.
I'm Kira Savino. I am here with the On-Track Apprentice program. I am the expert announcer apprentice this week at Loretta Lynn's, and this is a great program to be a part of. They have everything from announcing to social media to production to mechanics, and it's a great way to get involved and figure out what career path you want to pursue in the industry, and it's an awesome week and an awesome program to be a part of.
We're here with 11-time Loretta Lynn's champion, Adam Cincerillo. Adam, I know this place has to hold a special place in your heart. So many memories made here. When I say Loretta Lynn's and this race, what's the first thought that comes into your mind?
Well, it went pretty well for me when I was here. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, I mean, even just pulling in the gates here, it's so much nostalgia. You almost get transported back to being a 14-year-old kid coming through the gate. It was, no matter how good of a year you had as an amateur, no matter how many titles you won, you knew this week kind of defined your year, as you know. And so there was a lot of pressure. I remember obviously having aspirations to be a pro. You want to come here and perform well in front of Mitch Payton, in front of Kawasaki. This was a big, I guess, turning point for me in my career. Being successful here and kind of allowed me to get to the next level. So, yeah, a lot of really good memories, and there's some stressful times in there too.
Yeah, so with so much success here, which was more surreal, racing here as a professional in 2020 or getting to be Grand Marshal and lead everyone around yesterday on Monday?
I think probably yesterday, being a Grand Marshal, racing the National, it was just, those were strange times, you know, and being here and kind of being the old guy, and being retired and working with some of the Team Green kids, and most of them were not even alive when, like, the last time I was here in 2012. So yeah, it's very surreal and cool just to see that kind of respect I get from the little kids. All of a sudden, you know, I'm the guy. We had a Team Green dinner on Sunday night. Like, I'm the veteran talking to the kids, which is weird for me. I still feel like a kid myself.
So you've been coming here a long time. Most of your youth was formed here at Loretta Lynn's Dude Ranch. Now we're here in 2024. What jumps out to you as different? Could be the atmosphere, the racing. What has changed since then?
Well, it keeps growing. I mean, I did a lap around the facility yesterday, and it seems like there's more motorhomes here than ever. And as you become a professional and you get somewhat detached from amateur racing, you can kind of lose track of how big it is. But the sport continues to grow. It's in a great spot. And, you know, I have people sometimes ask me, like, oh, do you think you were better on a Super Mini than so-and-so, whoever's racing now? And the answer is absolutely not. Like, the sport keeps progressing. I'd like to think I had a small part as the people that came before me and kind of advancing the skill sets. And yeah, these kids are faster than ever now, and in 10 years, 15 years, it's just going to keep going. So I think that's what stands out to me is how in shape these kids are, their racecraft, their skill, everything just keeps going up, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch these next few years.
Okay, SMX Facts Time. We are at Washougal right now talking to our statistician, Clinton Fowler, and you've come up with some numbers to try to illustrate how Loretta Lynn's, the National for Amateurs, is the roadmap to pro motocross behind us.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Last week, 80 guys at Spring Creek Racing, 67 of those guys had been at Loretta Lynn's and raced.
Okay.
The 13 that hadn't, amazing, they're all international riders, so they didn't grow up in the States. So obvious why they wouldn't have. The crazy part here, it clearly preps guys for a pro career. JT, what is it about Loretta's that preps them?
Well, I think the powers that be at Loretta Lynn's would love to hear that from you, because I hear it so many times. Is Loretta important? How much does it form you? How much does it prepare you? The numbers are striking, right? As what it does to lead up into that pro career. And it's just the backbone of amateur racing. When it really comes down to it, it's what riders look forward to all year long. And it's the pinnacle of amateur racing. It really is.
Yep.
Okay, now, so that's out of the 80 riders that raced at Spring Creek, 67 had qualified for Loretta's. But I think where the real controversy is, does success at Loretta's matter? You're just talking about making it.
Yeah.
What about winning there? How does that equate to pro championships?
Yeah, winning matters. 30 of those 80 guys have won a championship. So it's not even just making it. They've clearly had success there. 30 riders with a championship there. Absolutely incredible. JT, you've got Chase Sexton. He's got 2 Loretta titles. He's leading the 450s. You got Hayden Deegan. He's got 7 Loretta's titles. He's leading the 250 championship. So case in point. And then you look at both classes, the top 5 in each of the 250s and the 450s. 4 of the 5 guys have all won championships at Loretta's. So clearly, and only 2 that haven't, Hunter Lawrence, Tom Vial. Both of them are international riders. What is it that not only preps them, but preps them to go win?
Well, it's hard to hide talent, right? So these kids, you think about everybody that's made it to that level. Just to qualify for a pro motocross, to make the motos is a feat in itself, but to then elevate yourself into the top 5 in points is a whole different thing. So for me, it's hard to imagine a rider would have never found a way to win at Loretta's if they're going to go on to be a top 5 rider in points. So it kind of speaks for itself.
But our stat man here, Clinton, can find the little pieces of data you wouldn't expect. And you did find 2 riders that have had pretty good careers as pros who don't have Loretta's titles, and they're household names out here.
Yeah, there's guys with a lot of fans behind them.
Yeah.
Both Christian Craig and Malcolm Stewart have won Supercross titles.
Yeah.
And not one of Loretta Lynn's titles. So you got Malcolm Stewart. He won a 250 East Region Supercross in 2016. Christian Craig won in 2022. Incredible talents. And the crazy one for me was Christian Craig. The best he ever did at Loretta's was a 14.
Yeah, and I shouldn't speak to their level of racing, but the best I ever did was second there, right? And it's something I've thought about many times. You know, those dark moments you're alone thinking about what could have been better. Winning Loretta's was always a regret. I've even thought about going back to try to right that wrong. But yes, to think about that caliber of rider, but a lot of it is situational. If they ran into a juggernaut, you think about like if you were the same age as Ricky Carmichael, good luck to you ever finding a way to win. So sometimes it's situational, but I think a rider like Christian Craig, he just never had any good luck at Loretta Lynn's. Sometimes that happens also, and I think also he'd only been there 3 times. Is that correct? So the sample size is a little bit smaller.
Yeah, it was only 3 years. In the 1 year he got 14th, he went 5.5 DNF. So to speak to it, and it also speaks to just how hard it is to do well at Loretta's with the 3-moto format.
That's some data behind Loretta Lynn. Thanks, Clinton.
Well, we're here at the mill, another important spot at this ranch to most people that have lived here. They've gone by this a bunch of times. And the creek that we showed you earlier, it actually leads to this. Just make sure you get out of your tube before you get to the dam. But it's really about the racing here, and I'm going to illustrate, I've been announcing this race for 23 straight years, some of the stories of today's pros and how they got discovered here and went on to become what they are now at the very highest level. So I'm going to start with Joe Shimoda, who was pretty fast on 85s for a while, but he had a real big breakout in Super Minis. He's battling it out with Seth Hamaker, who you also know from Supercross, but he won Super Mini title in 2016. He was a KTM rider at the time, got the coveted Geico Honda deal, and that took him into the pros. And that's when he knew it was time to move to America full-time and really pursue this. Hayden Deegan, no surprise, already had a lot of hype in his early Loretta's days, but he was luckless. I remember his engine blowing up when he could have won a 50cc championship. He ended up going 1-1-18, got edged by Casey Cochran, who's still racing Deegan to this day. So again, when they were on 50s, and I talked to Brian Deegan that day, and he said, man, I hope we're not cursed here. I never won a title at this ranch. Now, Brian was very good at Loretta's, but as he said, I was the same age as Kevin Windham, and Kevin Windham was unbeatable here, and I never got a title. So he was afraid that maybe Hayden was headed that same way. 2 years later, he finally did get a title, 2017, in the 65 10-11 division. Jet Lawrence, even though he's from Australia, did come to Loretta Lynn's once because the family had already moved here, so Hunter could race as a pro. It was like a bomb went off when he won his very first moto here, which is not normally what anyone does. And then he had that all-time battle we've talked about quite a bit with Jalek Swoll, where they essentially tied. Swoll got the win by 1,000th of a second, and that was enough for him to win that title. And then Jet's bike broke in the other class, so he ended up without a title in his one visit here, but he was 15 years old. He would go on to do plenty of big things as a pro. One of the other cool things about Loretta's is sometimes the mini cycle classes, riders will dominate there, and someone who's sitting on the outside looking in when they move to the full-size bikes really steps up. I'll give you a couple examples of those riders. It was Levi Kitchen here a few years ago, 2020, came out of nowhere. He was maybe a top 5, top 6 kid. He won all of his motos in the B class in 2020, got signed by Star Racing, has gone on to a successful pro career. Similar also to Chance Hymas. There was a really stacked B class in 2020 that he was in. Jet Reynolds had been dominating on mini cycles. He was probably the favorite. Hymas ended up getting a championship that year. That led to a factory ride with Honda that he still has to this day. Chase Sexton, most of his career is overshadowed by Austin Forkner in the B class in 2015. Forkner beat him in just about every moto. But credit to the Geico Honda team for saying, man, if Sexton's close enough to even stay close to Forkner like he did, it might be worth taking a shot with that kid. He went to the Geico Honda team and the next year completely dominated. Forkner had already gone pro at that point, but Sexton's career obviously has worked out pretty well. And if you go even further back, Eli Tomac won a lot of mini-cycle championships as a Suzuki prospect, and then he moved to that Geico Honda team, and some of the biggest leads we've ever seen at Loretta Lynn's ranch when he was a B rider, and he didn't even come back to race A, or what they call pro sport here. He was ready to go race pro, and if you remember right, he won his first pro race ever coming out of Loretta's. That was amazing. And Justin Barcia did similar things in the B class on Hondas right before him. So if you look at the history of this event, that's that pathway. Very, very few. There are stories of riders that didn't have success here that did as pros. They're pretty rare. And I can go all the way back to Cooper Webb, who won a PW50. That is the smallest motorcycle here, the 4 to 6 class. Won a championship in a PW50 in 2002. Still racing Yamahas now and still doing pretty darn well. So behind us, this is the 65cc 10 to 11 class. We want to highlight that because when you go to the SMX races in person, we'll have the 65 class, these riders racing at Charlotte. Then we'll have the Super Mini class racing at Texas Motor Speedway, and the World Championship race in Las Vegas. The 250 Pro Sport riders will race there. And it's key because I don't know how many SMX folks that were in the stands at Charlotte had ever watched high-end 65 racing to know what these kids are capable of until last year.
Well, I saw one of them jumping the triple from afar, and I literally left from where I was and walked over there just to stand next to it in awe, right? And you think about the great race we had in Chicago last year of the Super Minis, Vincent Way really kind of making his star known. And then, yes, the 250 Pro Sport at Vegas. It's really the next step for all these riders. It's the incorporation of the SMX playoffs into Loretta Lynn's. And it's really something for all these riders to really look forward to.
Yeah, and you have to qualify your way in. Again, it's not an automatic entry, so it's only the top riders from this. So I saw last year they also have a race which will have in Las Vegas for the electric KTM minis, the 50cc size electric minis. There was a rider there on 1-2 and then DNF the last moto. He didn't get in. So it's an additional dangling carrot. That's what I love. People talk about kids have the participation trophies. Not in this sport. It was constantly leaving those check boxes for them to get to the next level.
Well, think about these riders. They qualify their area qualifier, regional qualifier. Now everything's on the line, and there's still another step for SMX, which is a brand new whole thing for us. But what a qualifier and what a goal for them, that carrot that's always dangling, as you mentioned.
Those kids are working hard these days. So we're going to watch some 65 action, and then we'll see them in Charlotte. So let's think of the next step here for a lot of these amateurs. Normally the roadmap is pretty clear of who's probably going to graduate from what they call pro sport here and then race Unadilla. We don't know for sure. Cole Davies dominated his first pro sport moto, so maybe there's something there for starters.
Yeah, I think this is the proving grounds, right? Yeah. So you look at guys like Drew Adams, they're going to take that next step. Off to a rough start here on day one, but that's why there's a long week. That's why there's 3 motos. He's going to show his true potential, but to your point, Cole Davies bounced back from a rough combine race to get off to a first win here.
Yeah, and you know how Star Racing is. If they see potential, they're not afraid to move people up. So maybe we'll see him at Unadilla. Adams, I think Kawasaki's already said with Ryan Holiday, probably not till Ironman and not full-time until next year. But behind us right now is actually the B class. And what's funny now is, because the riders all graduate at different times, sometimes 250B is the last true, I feel, showdown race. So you got Landon Gibson, Landon Gordon, Caden Dudney, Alvin Hill, and a lot of other riders who are maybe 2 years away.
Yep.
But we've seen riders who are good go to great in this class.
Well, think about Ryan Dungey.
Yes.
He came here really impressed in the 125B class and 250B class. Roger DeCastro said he has it, right? We're taking him to the next step. So you get out here and really show your worth. Your career trajectory can really get accelerated.
Yeah, so don't be surprised if you even see some of the riders who are B riders now maybe racing pro in Pro Motocross next year. You'll certainly see them in SMX next in a lot of different races. But the roadmap, it's changed quite a bit. We'll see who shows up at Unadilla, and we'll see what they got. Check this out. We were actually inside the semi-tractor trailer where Racer TV puts the live broadcast of Loretta's together. You can watch every single moto for free at racertv.com. And I'm usually on the other side of the announcer's tower where we take the live announcing feed. This program has come a long way. It actually started with the Grand National Cross Country Series. I remember when they had one stationary camera at the finish line of a 3-hour race, just one shot for 3 hours, and you could listen to the live announcing and look at the live timing and scoring. Then GNCC went to 4 cameras, and then they brought those to Loretta's, and it changed the game. Most people had never seen this race. They had maybe seen photos. It's long before social media, so there was very little actual, what does it look like if I'm not there? Now the idea that we have live coverage is taken for granted. There are now 7 cameras and a drone, so 8 cameras covering every single moto. We used to only cover a few. At one point, we were working inside a giant, or no, not a giant, a very small storage container. Now we're inside this big semi, and they still cover the GNCCs and Loretta's, and it's really changed the game to have live moto coverage. And now we just take it for granted. Good job by Dan here, Adam, and everybody else for this crew. These are long days. We're going to tell you how to watch our next race, which will be Unadilla, coming up the weekend after Loretta's ends. We're back to the usual program. That'll be Race Day Live, presented by motosport.com at 10 a.m. Saturday. And then at 1 p.m., we'll start 4 hours of coverage of the motos, 250s first, 450s second. And you can watch everything on Peacock or the SMX Video Pass outside the United States. And now let's go say hi to our friend Dr. Joe McGinley with this week's SMX Medical Update. Maybe the biggest name is Avery Long, who's one of the favorites to contend in both of the pro sport classes, 250 and open. And he's actually worked his way back from some injuries. So what's the prognosis there? You expect big things? How's it going for Avery?
Well, I'm looking forward to Loretta's. Yeah, we've treated a bunch. It feels like the whole field at this point. But yeah, Avery we've been working with for a few years. Number one thing we saw him for and fix was arm pump. But unfortunately at the Minios this past year, he tore his ACL. So he was out for several months. And you know, it was heartbreaking for him and his family. He was looking really good, and his results were showing. But he's back out there. You know, he's at the Combine at Redbud, ended up in 5th place in the shortened race format. And he's getting ready to get out there and try to get those titles at Loretta's. He's getting stronger each day, he's strengthening up the legs. Arm pump's not an issue. I just talked to him this past week, and no arm pump whatsoever. Just working on getting those legs strengthened back up from the time off the bike. You know, as other riders that have had ACL injuries know, it takes a little bit to get that coordination back, that strength back, especially in your upper legs. And that's where he's at. So very optimistic that his results are going to be there by Loretta's. He looked good at the Combine. He looked good in the area and regional qualifiers. So expecting big things from Avery this coming week.
Well, the cool thing about this is you do have some scheduled speaking appearances at Loretta's, and you can tell us about those, but you're going to be there all week long. So if parents, riders, they have questions about things that you can help them with, you're going to be on site throughout the week to be answering questions as well, correct?
Yeah, this is my first time at Loretta's. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to have an RV that we're renting, be on site there. We have a booth set up, so I arrive on Monday. I'll be there all week. And then we have a seminar Thursday evening. It's going to be open to anyone. You don't have to be a pro. Anyone there can come to it. It's at 5:30 at the Monster Energy Arena. And then we're also going to do a cool thing. We're going to live stream that as well. So there'll be links on our website for those that can't make it. Maybe if you missed the qualifiers this year, you can take a look and see what we're going to be talking about.
Awesome. All right. Well, don't be shy, folks. Go visit Dr. Joe McGinley at Loretta's all week. Check out the seminars as well. And I'll be hanging out in the RV. Thanks, Dr. Joe.
Perfect. Look forward to seeing you guys.
So obviously racing is a really important part of this event, but so is family fun. So for more on that, let's send it back to Kira.
One of the most popular places to hang out on a hot day like today at Loretta's is the creek. A lot of people come down here and float and just sit and hang out. It's a nice place to cool off when it's hot and sunny outside. And there's a lot of different things going on throughout the week. They have bonfires where you can go and make s'mores. They have concerts and music, a bunch of different nights throughout the week. They have boat races in the creek. They have a bunch of different things for family and friends to stay entertained, and it's not just all about the racing here at Loretta's, it's about the environment. It's very family friendly, and it's a really good place to have fun for a week.
Well, this is it. This is the true home where Loretta Lynn lived and her husband Mooney, who were a big part of allowing this race to come here. But I'll be honest, I grew up a motocross fan, and I'm from New Jersey. We didn't listen to country music. I only knew of Loretta Lynn because of this. They made a movie about her life, but I didn't know anything about that. And I got to think that's the case for a lot of the people here. Loretta Lynn means a lot to them, but only because of motocross, not because she was a celebrity or in her own right.
Well, you did live in West Virginia, so there's that. You can't sneak away from that one so much.
I eventually learned it, yes.
You didn't know much about Loretta Lynn or country music. I didn't know what a dude ranch was. This is Loretta Lynn's dude ranch,
yes.
So lots of learning has gone on between the both of us. But yes, this is the pinnacle of amateur racing. If you've ever wanted to become someone in the sport, you've probably spent some time here, whether it's an industry side or racing. It just doesn't get any higher as far as the expectation and what it takes to get to the next level. You have to really come through here.
And what makes it a perfect combination is this was not built for motocross. This is a family campground, so it has a lot of facilities and a lot of things to do that entertain the people who are here for a week or even two. But I've never understood this, JT. Were you able to actually have fun with your friends at times and not just be stressing on racing the whole time, or was it always dead serious?
It was always in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
You really tried to compartmentalize it a little bit because remember, this is vacation. All the parents that are here,
Yes.
this is their vacation for the year. A lot of them, and for riders, a lot of them are in school, right?
Yeah.
So this is their summer breaks. You have to try to enjoy it. You see people in the creek all week long trying to enjoy their time, but make no mistake, when that gate drops, it is all business. The amount of time, money, and effort put into this event itself speaks to that.
That's right, and we'll be back on the pro side coming up at Unadilla. We'll be back with SMX Insider next week to preview that as SMX and the Pro Motocross Championship resumes in New York, and maybe a couple of the riders we saw here will be racing there. Thanks for joining us, a special edition of SMX Insider from Loretta Lynn's Ranch.